Tuesday, July. Oh my gosh, I've just had a mental blank on what the date was. No, it's actually Wednesday today. That's right. I was meant to go live yesterday. I go live every Tuesday for Technique Tuesday. However, as many of you know, our daughter is getting married next week and things are a little cray-cray here at the moment. So I had to actually push back my Technique Tuesday to today on Wednesday, which means I think today's the 28th. I hope it's the 28th. Anyway, it's Wednesday. I'm coming to you live and I'm super excited to share my layout with you this week. For the weekly scrapbooking challenge, we are taking a single page spread and we are turning it into a double page. I'm using the half and half corner title layout, and this is on page 82 of the Reflections Scrapbook program. This is an older how-to pattern scrapbooking program book, and if you don't have a copy of it, you can purchase it on Amazon. I'm working my way through this book and we are creating, turning single page layouts into double page scrapbooking layouts. So the half and half corner title basically creates a title in the corner of your scrapbook page. It is as simple as that. So I have got a double page 12 by 12 inch layout here. Now, the half and half technique indicates that half of the page will be with one pattern paper or designer series paper and the other half a different one. Now, because I don't want to waste a whole sheet of designer series paper for a double page layout, I've actually used the Blackberry Bliss cardstock as my base cardstock. Now, this is the two-tone cardstock. This is the original color of Blackberry Bliss. I've turned it over and used the lighter side, okay? So it's just a lighter side, a lighter version of the Blackberry Bliss cardstock. And I have used some designer series paper here. We'll get to that actually shortly in a moment. Let's go through the paper dimensions to start off with, okay? So I've got my 12 by 12 inch base of Blackberry Bliss cardstock. Now this strip of paper, really easy. I've taken some designer series paper, one sheet of designer series paper, and I've cut it in half at 6 inches. And then I have used that pattern on either side of my layout, on the outside edges of my layout. And then we are cutting the title, a bit of cardstock through the top left-hand corner here for your title. And this is cut at 2 by 6 inches. Now I've cut this twice. I've cut 2 by 6 inches here in Coastal Cabana cardstock. And then I've also cut 2 by 6 inches in White Willow. And this is my journaling box, okay? So I've replicated this mirror image there. Then you're going to need mats for your photos. I've taken some designer series paper here. I've coordinated this strip and the piece for my mat. So this mat is actually measuring 7 by 5 inches. So it is a thicker mat that I've used for the photo, and this is a 4 by 6 inch photo. So you are going to need 2 sheets of designer series paper that match to be able to cut all of these 4 pieces. This is a Darling Duckling floral pattern. So these 2 mats are 7 by 5 inches. And this strip through the middle here is actually cut at 12 by 5 inches. Okay. So something a little different I did for my photo mats this week is instead of cutting my normal 1/4 inch mat, I've actually cut them at an 1/8. So these are 4 by 6 inch size photos. My mat in White Willow here has been cut at 6 1/8 by 4 1/8. And you've got this really thin little mat around the outside of your photos here. Cutting them any bigger would have really taken up quite a fair bit of room and covered this designer series paper. So I've just opted for a nice thin mat. It's something a little different that I would normally do with my scrapbooking, but as you can see, because these photos are so bright and vivid, having this white mat underneath them as a barrier between the print and also the Darling Duckling designer series paper really just helps to make that pop a little bit. Okay, so these are 4 by 6 inches, these photos here, and this is a little different here. We've actually cut these photos at 2 by 4 inches, and this was actually great photos for me to choose. So I've opted for these larger photos here that I want to keep in the full 4 by 6 inch frame, And these smaller ones, cutting them down to 2 by 4 inches really just helped me to get rid of a lot of waste of space around the outside of my photo and just focus on, as you can see here, this was the spring flower show at Macy's in New York City. My husband took a trip to New York City last year. I was unable to travel with him at the last minute. So he went with friends, and I just love these photos so much. I love this quote: one of the sweetest ways to love is to let someone grow. And if you know my husband and I, we love to travel. And this was the first time he took quite a big overseas trip without me. So I loved that he took a trip to Macy's, took these beautiful photos. This is the Louis Vuitton bear as well, him having a beer at the end of the day in a Mexican dive bar in New York City, which I absolutely love. I've got a flip flap here as well. And so how fun that he took all these photos for me. Even on the other side of the world, he was thinking of me and wanted to send these photos through to me. So of course I wanted to scrapbook them and make a little bit of a story about that, because growth is hard, but sometimes it is necessary. So a little bit of a story there behind those photos. He's cruising around New York City, living his best life, and it just makes me so happy to see him so happy and having so much fun. So let's get into the technique. Oh, before I do that, let me run through where the photos have been aligned. So we've got our cardstock bases. This 6-inch strip, you're just going to actually stick this flush up against the outside of your page onto the cardstock. And then this Darling Duckling strip is going to sit in the middle of this remaining 6-inch area here. So this is 5 inches. You're going to end up with 1/2 inch on either side. So you're just going to stick that through the middle there. And then these borders, this title border and also the journal box, this has actually been stuck 1 inches from the top, and you can see because it's 6 inches, it fits flush through the width there. I've just embellished these with some stickers. And then I've kind of just eyeballed the photos. So I started with the 4 by 6 inch in the middle, and then I've put the smaller photos either side, but there's probably about 1/2 inch of a space around here, the top and the bottom. But I typically will start with a larger photo in the middle, and then I'll put the smaller ones either side. And then this mat here, again, I've eyeballed that. It's about 1/2 inch around the outside here. It's pretty much in the middle of this 6-inch strip too, 1/2 inch up, and then my photo in the middle. So I don't fuss too much with the measurements. I kind of just eyeball them, and it typically works out. You can get your ruler out and measure it if you prefer to do that. But I love here we've got 4, 8, 10 photos on here because I have added a flip flap. So I love this one here with the you can see the reflection of the buildings from New York City skyline here. So let's go through the technique for today. We are using a new 3D embossing folder. This is called Floral Spray, the Floral Spray embossing folder. So I'm going to be demonstrating this to you today. I've got some cardstock here already cut. I love investing in these size embossing folders when Stampin' Up! Bring them out, because they're 6 by 8.5 inches in size. And because I predominantly scrapbook, I've got this big 12 by 12 inch space that I need to cover. Having said that, we've only cut a little 2 by 6 inch strip, right? But you do have this larger space to use. And so I typically always invest in these larger 3D embossing folders when Stampin' Up! Bring them out, because they are great. A great size for your scrapbooking. And I'm just going to bring my catalog here into view. This is the May to August 2026 catalog. I've already shared my Life in Bloom scrapbooking workshop kit layouts. I would have done this in week 1 of July video, so you can go back and watch that on my YouTube if you like. But this scrapbooking workshop kit is part of a coordinating suite, which is called Valley in Bloom. And this 3D embossing folder has been taken from this Valley in Bloom suite. So when I made the scrapbooking workshop kit layouts, I did invest in the coordinating shimmering dots, because I love to bling up my layouts on my scrapbooking, from my scrapbooking workshop kit. And then I typically invest in perhaps a couple of the other individual pieces from the suites and I use them on my scrapbook layouts. I use the leftovers from my scrapbooking workshop kit. In this instance here, with this particular layout, this Daffodil Delight paper has actually come from the Valley in Bloom Designer Series paper pack. So I do typically invest in a second pack of Designer Series paper. And then the purple pattern paper, interestingly enough, I love to bulk up my Designer Series papers using the color collections. There are some new Designer Series paper stacks. These are in the back of your catalog on page 82, but you can actually get a packet of 12 by 12 inch Designer Series papers, 20 sheets. So you'll get in all of the different color collections. You can get them in subtles, brights, regals, and neutrals. I invested in the neutrals first. So the neutrals are these colors here, and Blackberry Bliss was in that pack, and Blackberry Bliss is one of the colors that coordinates with my Valley in Bloom and Life in Bloom scrapbooking workshop kit. So that's how I like to coordinate my papers together. And once I've used up all my papers from my scrapbooking workshop kit and paired them up with the coordinating DSP, I look for other paper suites that I can bulk them up with to create these weekly scrapbooking layouts. So no shortage of beautiful paper and colors and patterns for you to choose from in the beautiful Stampin' Up! Range. So let's get into demonstrating this 3D embossing folder. I'm going to bring my Stampin' Cut in Emboss machine up here into view. So love my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. We're just going to open that up. Now I have got my plates already in the order that I need because we are doing 3D embossing today. This tells me here for a 3D embossing folder, I need plate number 1 and plate number 4. So I've got them here ready to rock and roll. I've got my 3D embossing folder, and then I've got my Coastal Cabana two-tone cardstock, which I've already cut down at 6 by 8.5. Now, with your 3D embossing folder, because this cardstock is two-tone, depending on which color you want to have, like which side of your cardstock you want embossed, you will need to put that face down. So if you want your original Coastal Cabana to be the embossed side, you will need to turn that face over. If you want the lighter side of the two-tone, then you would have that face down. Now, I have actually already tried to run this through my embossing folder. My daughter had my number 4 plate, and I tried different other plates from other machines that I've had previously to run them through, and they did not work, which just goes to show how fantastic this machine and these plates are. So I have got my Coastal Cabana cardstock in my 3D embossing folder. It is face down with a darker color. There is probably about an eighth of an inch here at the top, which is clear. That hasn't got the embossed pattern on it. So I'm actually just sitting that about an eighth of an inch down. You'll see where the embossing pattern starts on the folder. And then the folder is going to go in between your number 1 and your number 4 plate, okay? It's like a little sandwich. We're making a cardstock sandwich, and I'm popping that in my Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine, and we are just rolling that through. It's a pretty easy technique to do, and it's always fun because I love to incorporate textured cardstock onto my scrapbooking layouts. So you can see here, because I've had this cardstock face down with the darker side, this is the beautiful pattern that has been embossed, and you can see I've used the lighter on this one here, but you can also use the negative. If you want to use the negative side of your cardstock that you've embossed, you can certainly do that as well. Now, what I've done here is then cut this strip out at 2 by 6 inches, and I've picked an area of the embossed part that I wanted to feature on my scrapbook layout. Now, there's lots of other things that you can do with this embossed. You could get your sanding blocks and run them over the top of the embossed, because this is two-tone cardstock. It has a white core, okay? So the cardstock starts out white. We dye it with the original color of Coastal Cabana and then a lighter version of that color, but the inside core of the cardstock is white. So if I was to sand this down or distress the edges, you will see that white core. So that's a fun technique. Now I want to give you a little bit of a sneak peek. We've got some sanding blocks coming on September 1st. So if you don't have a set of those already, you are going to be really excited to add them to your shopping cart on September 1. Now I have also used this on some other layouts, this 3D embossing folder. And in fact, I shared this with you already last week, where I embossed this fresh freesia cardstock. Now, I don't know if you notice, can you tell how, I guess, strong and clear this embossed cardstock is? The two-tone cardstock is actually slightly thinner. This is the original Stampin' Up! Cardstock, so this is not two-tone. It is solid color all the way through, so it's slightly thicker. Can you see how this hasn't embossed as deeply on this cardstock as it has this one? So if you're looking for a really prominent embossed look on either your scrapbooking or your card making projects, my suggestion to you would be to invest in the two-tone cardstock. Firstly, you have more color choices with the darker and the lighter side, but you can very clearly see the difference there in the strength of the embossing with that cardstock. So I do really love our two-tone cardstock. A previous layout I did where I actually used my party alphabet dies, and I cut the letters out and I've used them on a scrapbook layout, which I actually shared with you live last week. So that is the beautiful new Floral Spray 3D embossing folder. I hope that you've enjoyed my Technique Tuesday on a Wednesday for today. This will be the last video that I will be doing live for the next 3 weeks, because we will be celebrating our daughter's wedding next week. So I'll be taking a little bit of time off, but I do have some pre-recorded videos that I will be posting in my Facebook group, which if you are on Facebook, you can search Scrapbooking with Sarah Shipton, and I have got some scheduled pre-recorded videos that we'll post in there each week for the next 3 weeks. So if you are looking for some fun techniques and some weekly scrapbooking challenges to do, that's where you'll find me. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. I hope you have a lovely week. And for those of you that follow along with my weekly scrapbooking challenges, I can't wait to see what you create for this week's challenge. Bye for now, everyone.